just a few minutes ago, I was trying to think of a quick joke of how to start my presentation. And I was trying to come up with a joke about how I usually go over time and how I can just get excited and talk and talk and talk. And then I realized I'm the only one with 10 minutes to give a presentation. Everybody had 20. So buckle up, because we're going to have to go through quite a bit of information here in 10 minutes. Challenges. I'll say the morning started with controversy. Then we came back from lunch and it was a mountain lion conversation. I'm lucky to say there's not a whole lot of controversy and there's a whole lot of agreement when it comes to drought. Nobody likes drought. Drought is one of the main issues that we have and that we face for conservation and for habitat management. This year, luckily, is not one of those years that we had that struggle, but typically we do. Typically, we see a whole lot of variation in the amount of precipitation that we have. But one of the issues that we have in the Chihuahuan Desert is not only do we receive less rain, the window of when you get that rain is shorter. So you get less rain, it's more variable in a shorter period of time. But one of those issues that we see is years like 2011. And the graph, you see the green is grasses, the blues is the precipitation, and the black dotted line is brush. This is looking from satellite imagery going all the way back to 1986. And the images on the top are the same place as the one in the bottom. But you can see that in 2005, you had a whole lot of green representing a whole lot of perennial grasses that were established, a whole lot of cover in southern Brewster County, at least for this particular spot. In 2023, you can see that grasses went away. And after 2011, we see a really hard time, or the plants are having a really hard time bouncing back from such a bad drought. So for the past 6, 7, 8 years, we've been trying to figure things out. How do we reseed native grasses? What grasses do we reseed? Hydrology improvements, which is going to be a big part of what we're going to talk about today. My students make fun of me because if you're going to take anything away, remember this: plants like water. We've done brush management. We've done a lot of remote sensing now with the drone technologies. But again, of everything we've done in the past few years, water is the key. In the desert, if you're going to do anything, when it comes to restoration of habitat, it all starts with the water. One of the studies that we've been doing in southern Brewster County, you can see in the picture, the whole background is bare soil. We went in, we grubbed all the creosote, we seeded the whole study area. We put some structures to hold the water down. We put some brush. We did all kinds of things to see which technique would help the most. Biggest difference was where you took the fight. You have to be careful at deciding where you're going to pick to start these fights. Microtopography makes a huge difference. 1 inch of difference of topography will dictate the difference between water going left or water going right. This specific property has received less than 3 inches of rain a year for the past 5 years that we were working in this property. Grass grew, but only where it rained. So no matter how much we did and what we were doing, we certainly saw that issue. With that in mind, then we scaled up. So we tend to do our studies to where we practice something for a few years, learn our lessons, what worked, what doesn't work. Well, then we scaled up. We know water makes a big difference. On the map on the left, you see a whole lot of little lines that are green, yellow, red. What we did was grab satellite imagery that is elevation models. With that, you can dictate, or you can figure out what the aspect is and the incline. You can figure out where the water goes and how much water goes through those streams. The red is the smaller areas that we were able to identify that had the highest potential for return on investment of where we needed to do a restoration. The red arrow in the middle points at the area that we focused to take that into practice. The two pictures on the right are not 2 different years. Those are about 3 seconds of difference as I was driving down the road. The only difference between the top and the bottom is we picked where to do brush management. We knew where the water was going to go, and we allocated our efforts to do restoration where we could win the fight. Same year, same day, not a minute apart, those two pictures. And those two pictures are as far apart as those doors in front of me. That's just where that water goes really makes a difference. Secure the water supply. Retention. At first, we just really thought we needed to put the brakes, but then we learned too that we need to retain the soil moisture as much as we can. We took our idea of soil erosion blankets to mimic litter, cover the soil. We saw great success in that end as well in that ranch. So it's not just to stop the water, but keep it in the soil as long as you can that has the highest success. Then we moved to trincheras. We knew erosion is a problem. We knew that we needed to slow down the water. You saw just a whole presentation, so I'm going to skip on what they are. But what do they do? Our job is to measure and quantify. We've done almost 400 trincheras in this specific property. We've measured only a few because we don't have the capacity to monitor all of them. But for the 5 trincheras or sets of 5s that we have monitored, we have quantified the 5 trincheras back to back, about 50 feet from each other, have the capacity to hold about 300 cubic feet of soil. If you make that translation into how many we had in the landscape, if they're all similar, if we can actually extrapolate, which I think we can, you're looking at 750 cubic yards of soil that has been retained in that landscape, in that property. To put that in perspective, you're looking at about 65 dump trucks that have been saved of soil that would have eroded and left. And the way we do that, we usually use a drone. We're going to planning on fly before and then we fly after. You get 2 images, you make the math, the difference between those before and after. That gives you the volume. Turns out when you go to the creeks, there's a lot of brush. You can't see the bottom. Raise your hand if you own a phone. What difference is, the only difference between that and a drone is it doesn't have wings. So we use our phone, took thousands of pictures walking down the creeks, and then just stitched those images together to create the same images that any drone would. Going beyond restoration in private properties, we tend to diversify a whole lot of the research that we do. We have a lot of work in private properties. Oil and gas restoration in the Millen area is another one that we've done. Talk about harsh conditions. It is a hard place to restore grass when you have a caliche pad. So we went to the task 3 years ago. We started this project. We have 8 different treatments where we added within 25 pads organic matter, biochar, combinations of those, and then we tested once again our soil erosion blankets. We refer to that as our water harvest or our water treatment. And then we sampled 2024, 25 for grass growth. So another lesson beyond plants like water is you need to look at stories at multiple ways. If we would have looked just at richness, at how many plants does every single one of our treatments actually has, you can see on the left side is 2024 and on the right is 2025. The dark green, we're looking at grass, and the less dark green is forbs. How many species are actually present per treatment? There's not a big difference. If you would have looked at the top one, which is the one we only seeded, you go from 12 to 25, 28 species the next year. Going from nothing but caliche to 28 species within a pad, that seems pretty good. Then why go through the troubles of adding more treatments on top of that? Well, cover is important. It's a basic principle of conservation that we tell all our students, and I think sometimes we just fail to give good examples. So even though these 3 treatments have the same amount, just about, of species richness, the cover, how much soil is being covered, is very different. If we had seeded only, which is the standard practice for restoration in industry and oil and gas, we achieved 14% of soil cover. So 85% of the soil was not covered. It was bare soil. If all you had done is add the soil blanket on top of the seeding, you increase soil cover by 143% compared to just seeding alone. You go from 14% to almost 35% soil cover. Now, does that sound like a whole lot of 30%? That leaves a whole lot of bare soil. When you go to the MIMS tomorrow, you will not find 100% soil cover. Even in our grasslands, if you have 50%, you're doing pretty good. So the fact that we went from zero caliche to 34, 35% soil cover of nothing but native grasses in 2 years, we're pretty happy with what we found. Now, if you go from seeding and putting that soil erosion blanket on top to adding organic matter and biochar on top of it, which is the most expensive of all practices, you increase 3.5% soil cover. Take-home message, focus on the water. Everything else will help. We'll add a little bit on top of things, but it's not what makes the biggest return on investment when it comes to restoration. Soil moisture, you can see the blankets in this picture. You see that square, and then there's bare soil right in the middle? Everything was seeded. The fact that you see this right there is where those blankets were laying. The bottom picture, that's 3 years later. You can still see where grass only grew where we did our treatments. What difference does it make in the amount of water? We did a monitoring of the soil moisture and soil temperature. We have these new Hobo loggers that were able to quantify soil moisture and temperature every 10 minutes for 2 years. Millions of data records that we are now able to record. We don't increase the amount of water that the soil can hold. We do by 10% is what we found, 10 to 11%, but soil has certain capacity. You're not going to make magic of how much soil can hold. It can hold whatever it can. But how long does it stay in the soil? How long does that moisture stay in the ground? We increase the length of soil moisture within the range that we guesstimated that plants needed to germinate and grow and establish by 70% longer. We almost doubled the amount of time that seed needs to have water just by using water harvesting techniques. That made the world of the difference to the response. The treatment is only as good as the process that it repairs. Think of your body. You don't start to eat or exercise before you start drinking water. You need to follow simple steps. Keep the water on the site. Protect the soil surface. It's a simple technique that we just need to figure out new ways on how to keep the soil covered. That will retain the soil where it needs to stay. It will increase water retention and match the action to the place of what you're trying to achieve.